think I'm gonna take a minute and just share some of the things that I've been listening to, looking at, paying attention to. It feels like just overly fragmented to parse each thing out into a specific post, and I think maybe a kind of constellation of media concerns and recommendations and references might be a nice way to offer something more substantial than the kind of piecemeal, hyper fragmentary approach that then gets folded into all of this other kind of disjunctive and accelerating media. I'm looking at this new models aggregator, which I think is interesting and also the kind of thing that is really necessary, just as a way to begin to organize these kind of archives around a collection of themes of interest. So this is, I guess, pulling from all over the place. They also do a podcast, which I quite like. Let's see. I was listening to this
What I think people
collection with Nora
thinking
Khan.
about this summer is like, do I come back in the fall? And like, why? Why do I keep going into debt for what?
I mean,
Maybe it's too harsh, but
I also, though this doesn't seem too cool either, that there's companies now that kind of do certification of people's skills and abilities outside of just their degrees or what school they went to. And then, I mean, you can easily imagine just the neoliberal distributed version of education, a non-institution version. Private companies that rigorously test like job applicants to meet certain standards. How they get the education doesn't matter. And then education suddenly just becomes this distributed private or autodidactic enterprise or practice.
I mean, I think though that doesn't acknowledge one thing, especially in art school, is that you have the technical skills and then you have the access.
I mean, yeah, definitely kind of art inflected, but it seems to be pretty rangy. And I don't know. I'm interested in these modes of knowledge production, and something like, I guess, this is a distinctly pedagogical project, kind of taking on this kind of Montonian notion of extra academic institutional studying, but this one is very much focused on the internet, which is fitting for the times, and also I think in some ways like it's profoundly sad to me, because I want to be engaged in forms of study that don't feel so alienated, and I understand the limitations of the time, but I think this is an interesting project or model. So I'm giving that some thought. I was looking at this article in Kaleidoscope about influencers, what we might mean when we're talking about influencers, and it kind of asks a cross-section of editors and contributors to take up this question. You can download the PDF for it, which is confusingly difficult to read in the way that it's been reproduced, but not without many interesting insights, and it feels extremely contemporary. And so, yeah, I think that's a recommended read, and a lot of conversations kind of nested into within this alternative social media platform, Relevant. I just signed up for it. It is pretty basic at this juncture. Maybe it's like a user issue. It doesn't seem like that many people are using it, and I guess the premise is that people should be rewarded for a certain kind of relevance or significance to their posts, as opposed to the lowest common denominators of Facebook. And there are these different trends or themes in which conversations can happen. And I think I'm just mostly curious to look at alternatives to Facebook, but this one seems like has a ways to go before. And I actually don't understand if it's a cooperative model or if it's a for-profit thing. It seems to be kind of enamored with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and that kind of stuff, which I don't understand very well. But looking at it, looking away from Facebook really, and trying to think about ways in which we can decentralize and cooperatively share the internet. This is a nice piece by Claire Fontaine about coronavirus. Again, I guess that it's hard to overstate the significance of Fred Moten, the Undercommons, and these modes of study, I think, in certain circles. This was great quote. From the Undercommons, the coalition emerges out of your recognition that it's fucked up for you in the same way that we've already recognized it's fucked up for us. I don't need your help. I just need you to recognize this shit is killing you too, however much more softly, you stupid motherfucker, you know? And I think that is a really clear sentiment. I think James Baldwin also has, I've heard variations of that theme from him, and it strikes as extremely true in the midst of this ecological nightmare that we're living in, that has so thoroughly pronounced with all the ways in which these issues are racialized. And I think this collection of Zoom or I'm not sure what these conversational quarantine chats that Frank Barat has been doing with all sorts of interesting people is worth paying attention to, and produced with really humble means. And there are all these just very thoughtful conversations. He's a great interviewer with a lot of folks that are saying very relevant and timely things. I saw the Kianga Yamata Taylor one, that was really good. The Roger Waters and Brian Eno was like way less boomery than I anticipated. And Mont Hill, Angela Davis, I think Frank edited some books with Angela, and the Vijay Prashad one was good. It's incredibly difficult to find. Cove19chronicle.com is the website, but it doesn't Google well. So there's that. Tiffany Shah is an artist and filmmaker based in Hong Kong, and a kind of like indefatigable Instagram storyer, really active on Twitter, which is a platform I don't participate in, but I really have been learning a lot about Hong Kong, and also keeping up with her kind of international aggregation. This string of reposts has to do with kind of big data biopolitics, and I think it's really important to be paying attention to this. I guess the scale at which she posts this is kind of staggering, and I think these kind of aggregation roles, this kind of looking at how what volumes of information we're asked to parse and begin to synthesize, are so vital, and I think so underappreciated and certainly unremunerated. And so yeah, I think I've been following them, and this form is so fleeting. I find myself screen capturing a lot of things that just pile up into information that I don't know when I will get to beginning to try to unpack. It's an interesting piece that came out from Terremoto magazine in Mexico City, from Eduardo Carrera. And I really like, I think I like at the outset some of the questions he was asking. Can activism be a tool to support ourselves when life is at risk? In what ways have these practices intervened in public, legal, and health systems? What is the relationship between bioethics, dissident bodies, and social control? What feelings matter in public life? What happens with grief when it's impeded, prevented, taken away, denied, and deferred? How can we re-elaborate this space of mourning, no longer individual but collective, and reinscribe it in the space of the political and the public? So these are certainly questions and concerns that are reverberating in my mind. Alex Vitale, I think, on abolition, prison abolition. His book is available for free, and O32C is, I think, collaborating with the Strelka Institute for this series of talks. I
Straight
started
in to
this-
the actual
this
dossier.
one.
If you wouldn't mind playing the video. This is the trailer we created to present the dossier sort of as an overview.
I wanted to panic. I wanted to act as if the house was on fire.
Anxiety defines the contemporary experience. Young people in particular are terrified, and the CBD, benzos, and mindfulness apps are not soothing anymore. We can scream fire and call for help, but we cannot evacuate when the burning house is planet Earth. Certainly not now, but probably not ever. We're stuck inside, even when we're out striking. Everything you do has environmental consequences, and yet nothing you do seems to make a difference. Traditional images don't adequately represent this world. The usual blueprints and drawings can't outline it. An accepted aesthetic convention won't enhance it. We propose a new how-to, a new catalog of tools. We propose a manual for the new interior.
You know, play on the Whole Earth catalog, which definitely endures in Northern California. And I think most people, at least in my circles, agree that Stuart Brand is kind of a misguided and pro-nuclear and kind of deeply enamored with a certain kind of, unchecked tech euphoria, I think, was a term that I heard Eva Diaz use to describe space travel at a lecture she gave. And anyway, that seems to be the kind of Zoomer take on that boomer romanticized ideology. And here we see some Moscow farmers strapping modified VR headsets to cows to see if projecting more pleasing landscapes would indeed yield more milk or boost their kind of sentiment, and it turns out it does. So it's probably instructive of a certain kind of thinking that we could apply more broadly. Interesting looking piece on the originality of copies, and just scanning through it, I saw it checked a few media theorists that I like, and try to get to it. An earlier kind of GoPro, proto GoPro. This is a new journal published by a dubious institute that has a lot of kind of ecological writing and a really nice production value. So we're looking at the Anthropocene or the Microbiocene, kind of Harawaiian, ecological, predictable, but well done, and Sorry, I guess this was written by a Berkeley, Tobias Rees. And I liked if the zoonotic layer undifferentiated us from nature by showing that we are animals among animals, then the genetic layer undifferentiates us from nature by bringing us into view as a tentative chance product of cellular evolution in a viral world. Our 8% viral DNA makes clear that the history of our genome exceeds the history of the human species by hundreds of millions of years, and COVID-19 makes plain this evolution is ongoing. A third layer of undifferentiation brings us into view as an ecosystem among ecosystems. When the first multicellular organisms evolved by way of individual eukaryotic cells joining forces, they did so in a sea of microbes, and these early multicellular organisms relied heavily on the bacteria and viruses that surround them. In fact, they integrated them into their cellular composition and charged them with overseeing their cellular self-maintenance. Bacteria contributed metabolic functions, and viruses regulated the resident bacteria by killing those populations that threatened to overgrow to become too abundant. Chilling. Little changed over time. Every known organism that exists today harbors microbes, bacteria, archaea, fungi, and viruses, without which it can neither exist nor function. Continues along. To speak of the human as the modernists did is like taking a piece of the wild, putting it into a petri dish, adding bleach and antibiotics until more than half of what is there is dead, and then celebrating the barely living remains as the human. I think there was another kind of ecological microbial piece by Hannah Landecker that opens with a nice quote from Nietzsche and gets into some similar terrain. Saidiya Hartman's piece in the recent art forum that was pretty widely circulated and talks about a lot of very important issues in relationship to the Black Lives Matter movement, and also from her Wayward Life's book. This quote, "The possessive investment in whiteness can't be rectified by learning how to be more anti-racist. It requires a radical divestment in the project of whiteness and a redistribution of wealth and resources. It requires abolition, the abolition of the carceral world, the abolition of capitalism." It's a powerful pull quote, which I think she spent most of her career kind of elaborating on. It's also a really nice collection of references to other people that are engaged in similar sets of issues. Trying to figure out what Twitch TV is, and got hung up on just the sheer volume of ASMR videos and this recording technology. I don't know what it is, but it looks kind of, I guess. He's behaving like regular television. Anyway. Beautiful film from Elia Suleiman.
their honey. Lay, 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 lay,
which was wonderful, kind of like a quiet, stylish, Flaneur-like version of Tati, observing the world from a distinctly Palestinian but also very cosmopolitan perspective, and just subtle and enjoyable. With that song that I can't stop playing from the trailer. 4 Columns. Recently shared a nice they have a series kind of looking back as media that people can catch up on that during this time of advanced media consumption, and this Wattstax documentary is just phenomenal, and I recommend it, as well as 4 Columns if it's not something that you subscribe to. Thoughtful criticism. I think that's it. That's it for my window right now, for my tabs.
My parents was like that, because in my neighborhood, used to be some beautiful black man would come through the neighborhood dressed in African shit, really nice shit, and they'd be peace, love, black is beautiful. Remember the essence of life. We are people of the universe, and life is beautiful. My parents go, that nigga crazy. I used to love to go to the meetings, though. When you get down, I got ultra black for a while. The brothers be rapping. I never knew what they were saying, though. But the brothers be having emotion. You see, the first thing you got to know is about eating pork. Now, you eat a piece of pork, you don't realize the subluxations of this individuality's prospect. What the man trying to lay on you through porkitis, you will not understand because the trichinosis of your mind will not relinquish the thought of individuality. You know what I mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, right about now, the soulful, funky sounds of the Bar King!
It's been said many times, in many places, that freedom is a road seldom traveled by the multitude. But we would like to invite each of you to come and go with us, and perhaps you'll see a side of life that you've never seen before.
I'm the son of a bad